President Trump still wants to acquire Greenland, and now Denmark's prime minister is taking him seriously.
This morning, Denmark's prime minister has praised the people of Greenland for their resilience amid mounting pressure from the Trump administration to take control of the semi-autonomous Danish territory. The world needs us to have Greenland, including Denmark. Denmark has to have us have Greenland. I want to ask you about Greenland. Vice President J.D. Vance is in Nuuk or is in Greenland today are reiterating their insistence that Greenland can't protect itself and that America basically ought to own the nation. Obviously, we respect the sovereignty of Denmark's sovereignty of Greenland by extension, and we're an Arctic nation, or what we have focused on most immediately. I'm going to use your question as an opportunity to underscore the major steps that this government has taken in the last 2 weeks to reinforce our Arctic sovereignty. In a stunning geopolitical maneuver, Canada has outflanked the United States to secure a pivotal role in Greenland's mineral wealth, reshaping Arctic dynamics. President Donald Trump's bold declaration in March 2025 shouting from the Congress podium, "We will annex Greenland to the United States one way or another," sparked global shock. Yet by leveraging a $3 billion rare earth and gold mining deal with Greenland and the European Union, Canada has sidelined U.S. ambitions, turning Greenland into a hub of multilateral economic interests. This development not only thwarts Trump's annexation dreams, but also redefines the Arctic as complex chessboard where middle powers such as Canada outmaneuver global giants through strategic partnerships. Trump's fascination with Greenland first voiced during his 2019 term resurfaced in his November 2024 victory speech listing unfulfilled dreams like a steel wall on the southern border and peace in Ukraine. He unexpectedly prioritized Greenland's incorporation into the U.S. His March 2025 congressional address emphasized control beyond mere leasing, signaling a shift from diplomatic overtures to assertive posturing. The National Security Council revived 2 Cold War-era documents, the Eisenhower-era Arctic Gap Identification Protocol and the 1980s Thule Radar Belt Modernization Draft, both of which hint at ownership or long-term leases with Denmark. The U.S. rationale blended military and economic imperatives. Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth argued Greenland's northern coast creates a seismic shadow for Russian ballistic submarines blinding Alaska's radar systems. Open-source analysts, however, suggested the real prize was Greenland's mineral wealth, 38 billion tons of rare earths including graphite, zirconium, and neodymium plus 17 billion barrels of Arctic oil. Missouri Senator Josh Hawley championed the cause, warning, "If we don't mine these resources, Beijing will." Trump's team framed Greenland's acquisition as a matter of economic national security, seeking Senate support for a mineral-driven strategy. Denmark and Greenland swiftly rebuffed Trump's rhetoric. What do you feel about Trump? What the stupid human in the world like a Trump? True, in our opinion, it's wild and weird to hear him speak of our country as something that can just be bought. We don't view it as a purchasable land. We have been here for a long time. We are used to our ways of living. Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen declared, "Greenland belongs to the Greenlanders." While a joint statement from Nuuk's coalition government in Copenhagen on March 12, 2025 rejected sovereignty negotiations, the statement warned that coercive U.S. initiatives would undermine NATO's integrity, a pointed reminder to alliance members. Greenland, autonomous within Denmark's kingdom, had long eyed Europe for development, aligning with the EU's 2023 Critical Raw Materials Act, which mandates sourcing a quarter of rare earths from allied environmentally compliant projects. Nuuk's Red-Green coalition saw an opportunity to counter U.S. pressure while fostering sustainable mining. The plan required significant capital, setting the stage for Canada's decisive entry. 2 Canadian firms, Greenland Resources Incorporated and Amaroq Minerals, spearheaded the $3 billion deal. Greenland Resources, a small to medium mining venture once focused on molybdenum in Ontario, capitalized on Europe's rising demand for the metal essential for high-strength steel. In fall 2024, it signed a letter of intent with the European Investment Bank's Green Fund, bolstered by Denmark's export credit agency EFO. By March 2025, Greenland's cabinet approved a 30-year molybdenum license directing or to Europe's steel sector and leaving Washington stunned. Amaroq Minerals, a multi-metal exploration company listed in Toronto, Reykjavik, and London, revived the Nalunak gold deposit previously stalled by harsh conditions. The project gained traction with a rapid funding round, £45 million, including £9 million from Denmark's IFU, £6 million from Norway's pension fund, and the rest from UK and US private equity. Ironically, American capital indirectly supported Canada's Arctic venture, undermining U.S. officials' annexation plans. The deal structure aligned with Greenland sovereignty goals. A July 2025 infrastructure law mandated 70% local employment in mining projects and diverted 10% of profits to Nuk's future fund modeled on New Zealand's Maori framework for political stability. Canadian firms accepted these terms, reducing investment risks while U.S. companies' willingness to comply remained uncertain. Canada's strategy extended beyond mining. Ottawa, alongside the European Development Bank and Norway's Sovereign Wealth Fund, established a $3.1 billion Arctic Green Transition Fund to finance Greenland's infrastructure, deliberately excluding U.S. institutions. This fund cemented Greenland's role as a multilateral hub, nullifying Trump's threats by embedding the island in a network of allied interests. NATO capital split over the U.S. stance. Norway backed Denmark. Poland stayed silent to preserve its defense ties with Trump, and Canada issued diplomatic warnings against coercive resource extraction. France escalated tensions, deploying the nuclear submarine Suffren to Baffin Bay and mobilizing development banks for a Greenland airport, signaling robust European commitment. The Canadian-EU deal disrupted U.S. supply chains, particularly for molybdenum critical for steel and electric vehicle bodies, nuclear reactors, and hypersonic weapons. The Inflation Reduction Act's EV tax breaks tied to domestic battery production overlooked Greenland's role, elevating molybdenum's risk status from medium to high. Defense giants like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon faced delays, with the former postponing hypersonic tests and the latter seeking alternative supplies from Australia and Chile. Within Congress, opposition to Trump's rhetoric grew. Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski warned that conflict would harm the Arctic environment and alienate allies, while Democratic senators from Maine and Vermont proposed consensus-based mining partnership. The State Department's development initiative with Denmark and Nuk tied to U.S. Navy base rights was rejected, further isolating Washington. Canada's broader Arctic strategy, dubbed the Arctic Hexagon by the Toronto Press, envisions a development belt from Baffin Island's iron ore to Greenland's minerals, integrated with joint NASA-CSA space facilities. While Ottawa tolerates U.S. military presence, it fears Greenland's annexation could spark disputes over the Northwest Passage, inviting Chinese interference. Canada's mining move, coupled with Ontario's battery export ban, positions it as a middle power balancing U.S. and EU blocs. Energy projects amplify Canada's influence. Cedar Energy's talks for a floating LNG plant off Disco Bay target Eurasian markets, bypassing U.S. LNG exports which face uncertainty under Trump's permit policies. Germany, seeking to diversify from U.S. and Russian gas, views Canadian Arctic LNG as a strategic alternative. Greenland's economic empowerment reinforces its political sovereignty. The Nalunak mine's arsenate gold yields silver and copper byproducts vital for clean energy alloys under the EU's Blue Hydrogen Initiative. By aligning with Canada and Europe, Greenland avoids U.S. dominance while securing revenue for its future fund. International law complicates U.S. military options. As a NATO member, Denmark could invoke Article 5 against aggression, a risk the Pentagon acknowledges. Plans for limited force demonstrations like C-130 landings at Thule Air Base aim for de facto access rather than occupation, but Nuuk and Copenhagen resist, wary of stoking Greenlandic independence sentiments. Trump's Greenland obsession has backfired spectacularly. Instead of U.S. control, Greenland has become an Arctic development laboratory led by Canada and Europe. Washington's transatlantic ties have weakened while Canada's middle power diplomacy, blending economic investment, indigenous requirements, and multilateral partnerships captures key squares on the Arctic chessboard. Greenland, no longer an island for sale, emerges as the 21st century's Pandora of critical minerals, with Ottawa and Brussels holding the keys. As geopolitical pressures mount, the Arctic is no frozen sea but a dynamic arena where international law, trade routes, and energy security intersect, and Canada has proven itself a masterful player.